Music is hitting hard today, folks. Welcome to the Real Deal, a Real Madrid podcast with me, Jarod Hector. I am joined by Loconte. The music is hitting so hard, Loconte had to show up in shades. That's how cool and how hard the music's hitting.
Knockout football, baby. You know what?
Exactly. Thank you, everybody who's tuning in on the live stream. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, put it out there. We believe we have the best Real Madrid content out there, and it is for FREE, free 99, free. Can't beat that, folks. All right.
Just to add to that, you also have us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating there if you guys are listening on it, the audio version. So yeah,
we're everywhere, man. You get it. You get us on YouTube. You get us on podcasts. Come on, man. Do it all. So like it, subscribe it, share it, do all the things. We are on the eve of Real Madrid's round of 16 match with Juventus from Serie A in the knockout round of the Club World Cup. Real Madrid finished atop Group H with a 2-0-1 record, 2 wins, beating Salzburg and Pachuca, and the draw against Al Hilal. And Loconte, the team has slowly improved through every match, and we are, even in the first match, you saw the ideas of what new head coach Xabi Alonso wants to do with this club. And with every match, we're seeing it execution a little bit better, right? So we're excited for that. And now with a match against Juve, a Serie A team, they finished 4th in Serie A this past season, a step up in competition for Real Madrid. Let's not lose our minds here either. Serie A is, Juventus isn't the best team in the world. Like, they're not, let's not go crazy, but they do represent a higher level of quality, especially in their final third, than a team like Pachuca or Salzburg have, for instance. So when Madrid has issues on defense, as let's be honest, they've had in this Club World Cup, you have players on Juventus who can punish them and make them pay by scoring a goal where the other teams may not have. So we will see how Madrid's defense is, right? Have they secured some of those issues, right? And now what do we look like? Let's say we go down a goal, right? Okay, well, now how are we responding now? How is Xabi ball working in this kind of scenario? Also, when you add in all the other factors like Loconte, right? Which is end of a long season for all these European clubs. Like, they're all running on fumes right now. So we have a lot of different things going on. But quickly, your top line thoughts about this matchup against Juve tomorrow afternoon.
I mean, you already kind of mentioned this a step up from what we had. This is more like tomorrow. I expect that we're going to see a team that Alonso believes the most in. So that is going to be the team where Alonso is going to put to fruition all the training that he's done with all the players. We're going to see probably a little bit less experiments being done, more into falling into what can we do and what can we not do. As you said, this is a team that can actually punish us. Whether we allow that to happen or not is going to have to be seen. But we also need to discuss a little bit about the mental aspect of the players, how they were treating the group stages, and how they would treat, how they're going to treat Juventus. That also plays a huge part, because Juventus, again, a more comfortable team to play against for us because it's an European team. So therefore, on the minds of the players, it's like, yeah, this is the level. This is where we really want to be. This is what we really want to play. So you might get a team that starts to execute even better than what they did on group stages, and you get the best performance possible, even though that's in line to happen considering how much the jumps have been first game to the second game and second game to the third game, how big the leaps of the team have been in level of performances, especially from certain players. Arda has definitely stepped up lot when it comes to it. Like from the second half against Al Hilal, when all of this kind of begun, because that first half is, if we want to be honest, one to forget. You mentioned it on previous shows, they were going back into the Ancelotti route, where whatever we can do, we're trying to do. Second half against Al Hilal kind of kicked off the changes, and that's why Arda is being pivot. A player that just Alonso doesn't seem to want to go through. And we even saw a 3 at back, which is something important to discuss, right? We saw a 3 at back because he wanted Valverde, Arda, and Jude on that midfield. So Tchouaméni kind of had to be that sacrificial lamb from the midfield where he's at his best. to play a central center back to cover up. So do you expect that to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, Loconte, because remember, in that Al Hilal match, I either said to you post-game or even during on Twitter or one of our chats or whatever, I said, oh, look, in possession, we're actually 3 at the back when we're in possession. So it already started then. Now, obviously, in the game against Salzburg, it was very evident we were 3 at the back, but we even started tinkering with it then. So you knew it was present. You mentioned Arda. Here's what I want to ask you. This would, because it's a knockout game, right? Which means you win or you go home. This would be Arda's, in theory, first big start for the club, right? Now, do you think he's going to start? That's the question I have for you.
I think he starts. I think that we're going to see the same lineup that we saw against Salzburg, personally. I think that was the most comfortable that the team has looked, at least for that first half, until they ran out of gas, basically. And Alonso even addressed that post game, where he went like, "Well, I didn't like what I saw in the second half, so I was trying to kind of use the squad to fix a few things," which I can appreciate it coming from the coach. The honesty, the second half was far from perfect, but first half, from that first second, you saw that the team is, going forward. They're not letting a minute go away without them dominating it. That's an important part, and I think they're going to try to do the same thing against Juventus, but try to prolong those dominant minutes where they can take full advantage of it. Because again, Juventus, as you mentioned, 4th in Serie A last season, not much has changed with that squad until now. They were struggling. They had a surprisingly good start to the Club World Cup, a better one than Manchester City, right? Until they played Man City. And then cracks just fully opened on that game. It was a rotational side there from them, but it goes to show that the depth is not good enough. And even when the good players, if you want to call it, came into the game, zero addition, because by that point they were just torn apart. So is Alonso looking at that game and thinking, this is what I need to do to them? I need to put them in bad spots, and they're going to crumble.
So let's look at that, right? Let's talk about Xabi versus Igor. Igor is likely going to have them in a 3-4-2-1, more likely, right? That's kind of what they do.
Probably because they have like that variety of inside attackers. Correct. They have like 10,000 of them for some reason.
and we talked about off air before we got on, Loconte, is that they have profiles that don't quite fit together well in their midfield, right? They have a lot of attackers and wingers they're probably trying to move out and get rid of, but they do have individual players who can do stuff. I mentioned Randall Colomani, who's one of my favorite young players, super fast, very skilled on the ball. Arda's Turkish teammate, Kenan Yildiz, very good out on the wing.
He's pretty damn good and very technical,
That guy is extremely
Nico Gonzalez, too, very great shooter, great runner. And Coinzensao, who's been like, he even started for Portugal, right? Given how stacked that attack is with Portugal, that's a good thing for them. But it's still, as we're saying, right? We're mentioning majority of them as attackers. So in midfield, they have like Keper Turam, who's a baller, by the way, but I don't think that I want that guy in midfield, if that makes sense, because you can tell that he moves a bit too much, sometimes holds the ball a bit too much. And for a team that has so many attackers, probably the biggest issue that we're going to face against them is going to be Cambiasso, the left back, because he's so versatile. He can come inside, he can play on the outside. He's basically, in my eyes, their biggest gem, and he's the player to keep an eye on what he's gonna do. So I think this is where we see like Gonzalo shift to the right side to try and block that passage for the ball to reach Cambiasso, at least as little as possible, because you know that cannot be stopped at all times.
Right.
But that's where you're going in your targeting to stop Juventus from progressing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so for us on how we are out of possession, we have operated with a back five a lot of times out of possession, right? With Tchouaméni literally dropping in between the two center halves, right? I imagine we probably stick with that. That's probably where we still go. It gives us our best it allows us to push the activity and the attack out wide, which is where Xavi prefers it, as opposed to us getting sliced up the middle, right? Which, as we know, this past season, And even early in this Club World Cup with balls over the top, we were getting beat with a little bit, right? That's a weak area for us. So I think that's what likely going to be what we do to push them all out wide. You mentioned three at the back, and how we are on the ball. So I guess we can probably move this here because it's all connected. Who do we think starts? What's the starting 11 for us versus Juventus?
I know that it's going to be hard, right? Because do you go with Arda or do you go with Tchouaméni in midfield and then try to figure out a different backline setup? Or do you go with, okay, Tchouaméni, he's not the perfect central center back because he plays that role a little bit like a midfielder. He wants to be a little bit more higher to intercept, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that sometimes there's a little bit of a rush, which you mentioned Colomwani. He's a player to take full advantage of that if we're too high. So, but I still think that he banks on Tchouaméni to win those duels, and he banks on Tchouaméni to help with the midfield rotations, which were very good in that first half between Valverde, Jude Bellingham, and Arda, because they can still slice it through to the attacker. Vini becomes a focal point again, which would mean the fourth game technically, where Vini is the guy who's doing majority of different roles and he's fitting them. So I expect the same lineup that we saw in the last game, and I think he's going with that. I know that Mbappé is back. We're going to touch into it later, but I don't think that he's just going to rush with changes.
I think you're right. So it'll be Fran, Dean, Rudiger, Trent, Tchouaméni, Arda, Valverde, Jude, Gonzalo, and Vinny Jr.
Vinicius,
right? And I think, again, there's going to be malleability within that 11, right? In that, as we mentioned, in possession, 3 at the back. Out of possession, 5 at the back, right? It's going to be, that's the one thing we know with Xabi Alonso is that he's a shapeshifter, right? We are going to see the team morph and shape. And the other thing we're going to see, the game is in Miami. It's going to be hot. So at that cooling break, which usually happens at, minute 30 around there, if things are not looking the way he wants, he will shift again at the cooling break and say, okay, no, I don't like this. Go to 4 at the back here. You slide up a little spot here. He's going
you can
to
just push Tchouaméni in midfield and just have a midfield 4 box. Because you can tell that Alonso likes to play in boxes, right? It's either 2, 3, or even sometimes 4 players form in a box because that's how he wants the ball to be recycled before it gets played vertically.
Correct.
So there's a lot of flexibility with the lineups that he's choosing. Like you see when Asensio got the red card against Pachuca, Gonzalo was moving a lot wide. Like that versatility from the players is a must in an Alonso team.
Yes.
And he doesn't mind giving up some of the things that he doesn't see as necessity. For example, having a hold up 9, but rather he wants a floating number 9 who's going to support the lines, receive between the lines. He's using Vinicius that a lot. Vini even said on the interview post the Salzburg game that he's enjoying playing this role under Alonso. He's enjoying being more involved on the inside. Naturally, don't want to blame the guy, but now he's having opportunities to pass the ball immediately instead of, okay, I have to dribble past 5 players now. Who God help me,
Well, it's so good you mentioned that because Vinny's last game where he had a goal and an assist, he played really well. He was moved more centrally, right, in that match. And
it was clear that he was more central.
But how was that allowed? Because what did Gonzalo Garcia do, right? He was able to move and draw a defender out of the way with him towards the left-hand side, right? Look, and Sid made this point on the last show. And this is not about, and we'll get to Kylian shortly, this is not about saying Kylian is not a good player. Anybody who says that, any Madrid man who says that, you people are nuts. This guy is an elite world football talent, one of the elite of the elites. But Sid pointed out, what makes Gonzalo, at least in the current iteration that we're seeing, work within Xabi's system well? I'm not going to say better because we haven't seen Kylian in the system yet, so we don't know. But what makes him work well is he does things in sacrifice and in service of the team. When Gonzalo makes a run or a movement, it isn't necessarily for, okay, give me the ball now, right? It is, let me make this run because this now frees up Vinny to now go haywire, right?
He's a decoy.
is Mbappe willing to do runs that allow the team to succeed, or does he only want to make runs that allow him to succeed individually?
I mean, that's a fair question to make, but I don't think that we have had any sort, at least on Kylian's career so far, I don't think that we have had any sort of evidence, remove the French media here, that Mbappe is not willing to take up different roles according to the coach. Like you saw with France against Spain, right? He was running like a madman when people were like, oh, this guy just walks. Look, do I expect that Mbappe is going to give you the same level of running that Gonzalo Garcia is? I'm saying off the ball, no, I don't. And that's for Alonso to figure out a way where he can probably, maybe that's why the 3 at back is even introduced this early, because he's thinking of, okay, I'm going to have Mbappe, so I'm probably going to lose a high man on press. Mbappe is going to cut the lanes like Benzema used to do. There's going to need some teaching that needs done there. But Mbappe is not. I personally, if I'm Alonso too, I don't want Mbappe to expel a lot of energy chasing the ball. I want Mbappe to
just use the right angles and cut the passing angles off.
Yeah. So just cut the angles, just know where you're positioning. If that team needs their pivot to progress, just make sure that you're not letting the ball get there. If they're playing wide, just make sure that the wide center back is having an uncomfortable spot to get the ball there. And to be honest, this team is a little bit of an athletic freak, which we're yet to see, right? Because we're so tired from last season. So all of this is going to come down to maybe Vini starts to sacrifice a little bit more. Vini is pressing, don't get me wrong, but you can tell that he has those moments where he's walking around, right? Because the team is just kind of doing the job. He's walking around, the ball has bypassed him, so he's not really chasing it back. He's not really doing that. So maybe now Alonso just sits and goes like, okay, look, Kylian, maybe we're changing the roles of you two. Vini, you're going to have to chase a little bit more, like Zidane used to do with Vini.
For sure.
But Mbappe's quality that he brings kind of allows you to do that, because Mbappe is able to put the ball down, dribble past 2-3 players. We saw that he was on top 3 or top 5 highest dribblers in La Liga last season, considering that he was playing as a number 9. That's a high usage on ball player. So you can sacrifice a little bit of Vini going from 6 dribble attempts to 3, but instead you're getting a player that can just comfortably dribble. So we're going to have, it's very hard to evaluate right now, because Gonzalo has fit in really well.
He has.
He's fit in really well.
We talked about this in the last show. It's very obvious to me that Gonzalo has done enough to earn himself the opportunity to compete for legitimate minutes next season with the A team. There are some Spanish reports, if you believe them or not, that say Madrid is not going to go after a secondary striker now because they believe we have one in Gonzalo Garcia. Yes, he is not the Joselu type profile in terms of a header of the ball. I would also argue he's still 6 feet tall, so he can jump and can head. He's just not Budimir, right? He's not super huge.
He scored that late winner via cross on Copa del Rey to send us through, right? So he has those box instincts. It's just what he's asked to do right now. It's not that. Not that he can do it.
He's not asked to do it right now.
Ridiculous amount of goals under Real Madrid Castilla. And while I haven't watched Castilla last season, I don't want to go too deep into it. I know that Raul always had problems with creating attacking patterns. I know that for a fact. So because I know that, his numbers just kind of
stand out,
make him even more special.
Absolutely. Listen, and so we love what we're seeing from Gonzalo Garcia, and I think it will be now sort of, again, a continued evaluation period of who and what we have and what this looks like. This is constant tinkering, guys. Yes, it's a competition we're trying to win, but it's also, Loconte, an active laboratory. Like you're a scientist and you're trying to put your things together and figure out, is this going to work, right? Here's my hypothesis, right? Yeah. My hypothesis is, we're going to win 3 trophies. And okay, now how's it going to work? I think it can work with a back 3 of this. Okay, I tried it twice. It looked good in these moments, but didn't look good in these other moments. Why? Okay, we don't like Fran here. We're going to move him out and put this person in. Oh, I don't like, Tchouaméni playing that deep into the back 5. Maybe we have him as a single lone pivot up a little bit higher, right? These are the constant tweaks we're going to be seeing in the game against, not the last one against Salzburg, but against Pachuca. To go back to Vinny, did you hear, if you're watching the match on DAZN, you heard Xabi, not like in a bad way, but he was screaming Vinny's name like for like 20 minutes. Vinny, like constantly getting into, no, here, do, attack, push. Like that's something Ancelotti didn't do much. And it's not about knocking Carlo. It's just the way in which Xabi sees the game and how he interacts. And Jude said this after the in between matches over the weekend, where he said his energy is infectious and enthusiastic, and it makes you want to connect with him. The way he talks to players, right? There is a way in which he and look, the best players in the world, Loconte, no matter what sport, they love to be coached because they want to get better.
Take LeBron James as example, right?
That's the common misconception people don't understand. The best players want to be coached, and a lot of them want to be coached hard, but they have to trust that
learn.
Yes, always. They have to trust that you know what you're talking about, and you're going to help me get to the best version of myself.
Exactly.
And I think Xabi's showing that.
Exactly. Like you said it perfectly. Like you can even tell. Like I mentioned LeBron because I think that he's like one of the front runners when it comes to talking about coaches. Like even now, this is a bit off topic, but with rumors of him wanting to go to Mavs, right? And majority of the reason is Jason Kidd, who was part of their bubble win ring as an assistant coach, because he loved working with Kidd on that regard. Or maybe he loves working with JJ on Lakers because JJ is so demanding and he doesn't hold back. I genuinely see an Alonso in JJ, and I think that both of them are young coaches, a bit inexperienced at some levels, and that inexperience does show us sometimes, like he did show with JJ on playoffs, and he did show with Alonso on the Europa League final, also on the Champions League against Bayern, even though in the Champions League, the condition of the team just wasn't perfect, so I'm not going to blame him much for that, but you can tell that the inexperience shows from time to time, but guess what? That's fine. It's growing pains. It's just a process that the coach is going through with the players. This is what's the great thing about this, right? This is why we can have new things to talk about every day, because Alonso might be set on this 3 at back. We're both expecting it basically, but come tomorrow, lineup is out. It's a 4 at back, and Tchouaméni is back in midfield. And maybe a player that you didn't expect to be dropped is dropped. Maybe you get like Vini alone up top because he wants to give a try to that, and he wants to see just how flexible that is with maybe Jude as a number 10 and having Valverde cover for Trent. He can keep Trent very high up. So we don't really know, and this is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of this transition from the Ancelotti, where you kind of knew what you were expecting. For example, you mentioned Arda, right? Arda got an El Clasico start after super performances, got taken off after 45 minutes. And it's just like, the guy didn't even get the chance to get the ball because you mismanaged that game so much. Yet now he's the one to take the blame. It's just, it's fine if you're doing it the Alonso way with Raul Asensio, but he's not really saying to Asensio, okay, you're never going to play.
Correct.
He's just telling him, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a talk, we're going to try to get these things out of your system. You are very rash. This needs to be gone. Because, for example, we can notice that he uses his hands a lot when he's on duels, and attackers take advantage of it. So maybe it's a growing pains. Maybe Asensio doesn't see the pitch for a little bit as he tries to work through it. Or maybe, for all we know, Asensio becomes a starter tomorrow because he believes that Rudiger is still not at physical level to be able to handle a team like Juventus, but Asensio is physically there. We don't know. This is the good side of it. You can't predict it. It's very unpredictable. We don't know what he's going to do.
And it's wonderful, as you mentioned, Loconte, because this is what this tournament should be. Yes, we are trying to win it. That is very obvious. But it is also, as I said again, a laboratory to experiment and figure out, well, what is it that I have? Because remember, guys, when this tournament ends, we still will have 2 months, 6 weeks before the transfer window ends, September 1, right?
So a month and a half, yes.
Right? So it's about 6 weeks until the transfer window ends. And then Xabi is going to sit down with the board and with Florentino and say, based on what happened during the Club World Cup and what we saw and what we experimented with, I don't think we need to worry about a secondary striker. Gonzalo has stirred that up. I think we still have a problem at left back. I don't think, but these are the questions that I think we're okay here. We might need someone here. These are the things that are going to be discussed. And then they're going to say, okay, do we go out to the market to get that? Or do we promote from within with Castilla, right? These are the
maybe
things
switch. For example, like Antonio Silva. Like he was the guy that always slipped my head. But I was watching Chelsea against Benfica and I was like, this guy is a bit rash. He's not very comfortable. But boy, if you put this guy as central center back, you literally have solved the problem for a very long time. Because to be honest, central center backs have the least of work to do defensively. They're more like the architects of the setup. And that guy is so tactically ingrained. And I'm like, maybe if you're talking about Carreras, maybe try to squeeze this guy in too. You never know, because if you're not looking for a striker, let's say, per se, and if you're not looking at midfielder anymore, because now Camavinga is back too, maybe you're going like, okay, but I want to have a little bit more flexibility. I'm not signing a midfielder where I'm not giving 15 million there.
Correct.
I'm not signing a striker where I'm not giving 10 to 15 million maybe. If you add wages on top of it, maybe like 20 million package. I'm not giving that up. Maybe I'm willing to pay Benfica like 120 mil for this duo. Just package it up for the next 5 years. You don't pay the release clause immediately because you're signing two players. You package that up. You get Benfica to push down a little bit. I know that both have release clauses which are 150 mil, but that's unrealistic. I think that both are very raw to be worth that. And I know that Benfica are a bit notorious for being bad negotiators, or they are able to squeeze money out. Which is a good thing for them in business perspective.
Of course.
But maybe post-World Cup, as you said, Alonso and the board sit down and they go like, okay, look, this team doesn't seem to be having problems up top. Franco is also coming here.
Correct.
I have goals everywhere. Jude can score. Valverde can score, as he's showing. Arda can score. Even Trent can score a free kick or something like that. Vinicius and Mbappé, I have a very high volume of end product here. I'm not seeing a problem there. Fram has shown to me to be a player that I can use, definitely if I'm using him high up, like he used him against Salzburg. He's shown that I can use him. Okay. So what are we doing next? Okay, so next, I probably want an architect central center back who fits that role. Dean doesn't fit that. I got asked that on Twitter by a few people. Dean doesn't fit that. Dean is too rash. He moves too wide. He doesn't fit that. But if Dean is playing on that left center back role, and boy, oh boy, with Rudiger on the right side and Militao as a replacement, Asensio, Rudiger can play on the left side as well, because that's where he played for Chelsea. You're set, right? Like your back line is set. Basically, you don't rely on Alaba, who has more injuries than starts literally in the ACL. So you don't rely on him. You just go like, well, if nobody takes Alaba this year, he's gone next year. Anyways. For example, the target, Saliba, I think would fit that role. Ibrahima Konate, a player that they're talking about, wouldn't fit the central center back. So if 3 at back is Alonso's solution to the team troubles, let's say the lack of controller in midfield, as we like to put it. If the 3 at back is the solution for that, and the midfielders just need to learn how to rotate even better than they did, then maybe you just sign an Antonio Silva prototype. Doesn't even have to be him, but I mentioned him because of the Carreras. That would make more sense.
Because with Benfica.
Doesn't have to be him, but is that Ruben Dias architect of center back? And because he's young, you still have years to get. Maybe you take a little bit of an L with the finances and the wage bill this year, and next year you just extend Rudiger, probably, which I would expect to happen for a year, because as we know, Madrid has that policy of once you're over 30, you're getting a year of extension because they want to keep reevaluating you as a player to see if you can keep it. So that's the direction that they're going to go with Rudiger. And Alaba, I don't expect him to get
no.
extension. Maybe he can be out this summer. We never know what the Saudi clubs might do. Look at Al Nassr, for example. They're trying to build around Ronaldo again. might be a
Right.
viable destination where
Hey,
they get into
if the Saudi leagues want to spend money, fine. We'll happily give them to them for whatever they want to
just
pay.
take him.
Just take him.
We'll package him up with Mendy too. Just take him.
I take it both. Listen, it is, yes, these are all viable solutions, and yes, these are the conversations that are going to happen, right? When fans think about we have to get player X, player Y, whatever, it's guys, these decisions don't happen rash or at the drop of a hat in a vacuum. All this is evaluation is taken into account, as we've been explaining, right? As Xabi says, look, you've seen, this is what we've seen. Here's what we need to do now. And just to answer Cake Eater, no, we're not saying Antonio Silva by himself for $70 million. We're saying you package him and Carreras together to get from Benfica for $70 million, not one of them for $70 million. So if you want to break it down per player, it's $35 million each for their release clause, right? If you want to divide it by two. But ultimately, that's
if it's 100 mil, right? And you can package it to pay over the next 5 years, because I would assume, given their age, you give them a 5 years contract. So if you package it to pay it in installments, like normal transfers happen, right? If you package it up on that way, you're winning, because you would probably be paying like 20 to 25 million a year. And those players might give you more than that value, given everything that's happening. So maybe to touch before we kind of close this off, is the fact that Real Madrid are the team that have earned the most money so far in Club World Cup. To think that it wasn't really a group that draws in, right? No America, no US team, I want to say, no US team on it, where people would be like, oh, this US team is playing Real Madrid. None of that. The stadium's packed in all 3 games, which apparently is the only team to be able to do that.
Real Madrid is the only squad that drew 60,000 plus every match. Only squad.
So it's like, okay, so financially, they're looking already healthy. Let's say they beat Juventus. That package is just going up, and it's going to end, if they win the trophy, with 120 million. And projections of brand exposure, all of these things happening on top of it. For all you know, now Perez is flying to Miami for tomorrow's game, right?
He's here. He's already there. He's already there.
You know, he's already there. So for all you know, it's not just I'm going to watch the team. Maybe I'm going to do some sort of business with a deal, because now the new Bernabeu. Maybe I'm going to get a brand to buy out something on the Bernabeu, because the whole idea of the Bernabeu wasn't just the pitch alone. It was everything that he's trying to do. It was a business model. That's why they paid so much. He flies to US. He now has a little bit of leverage in negotiations and such. So all of these things are to keep in mind when we're speaking about how the team wants to do. Do I think the Club World Cup is financial first, pedigree second? For time being, yes. I think this competition has actually shown some promise if you can lower the games on the other end. Right? It's shown some promise. It's given us some good games. It's given us some good teams to watch. I think that FIFA is doing a pretty good job with the way how they're handling it overall. But I don't think that prestige is the number one thing that clubs are looking at outside of that badge that they would keep for 4 years.
It's the dollars they're going to make for as they advance, right? The money. And yes, I think, look, this Club World Cup, as time goes on, will get better. I think it also is it has made some obvious sort of intentions for what will happen with the World Cup in the US next year, right? Look, the pitch conditions are a real thing, right? And that is something that FIFA and these teams, these stadiums will have to worry about. The problem is that these stadiums are mainly NFL, American football stadiums, and the field needed for those are very different than the fields needed for association football, right? I mean, you heard Jude say it. The ball bounces weird. Like, it's a whole different set of things, right? A lot of them are sort of astroturf or synthetic grass, not even real grass. Like, there are a lot of issues there, right? So that's number one. Number two, this time of year,
but that kind of tells them too, hey, look, those pitches aren't good enough to host the biggest tournament in football, which is next year. So you guys have a year to fix this problem. And FIFA might be sending their experts to check over more on what's happening there, because they got this. You know, like, good things might be coming out of it ultimately for football itself as a product. Again, I don't agree with the load of the players. You can tell how many teams are getting gassed up. so early, like running is becoming a problem.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to gauge who's better than the other
Right.
because, well, too much fatigue.
Yeah.
And are the knockouts going to be an even playing field? Bayern
That's the
Munich
thing.
scored 4 goals out of 7 shots. But
Yeah.
how often is that going to happen, right? They advanced, but how often is that going to happen? You think about it,
Yeah.
right? And Juventus had 5 shots total against Manchester City after
Right.
scoring 11 goals on the first 2 games.
Mhm.
So you go from 11 goals from the first 2
Right.
games
To 5
to
shots.
5 shots in total.
Yeah.
So,
No,
it's like,
you're
okay,
you're
this is
get yeah.
becoming very hard to measure.
You're
And,
getting a lot of teams at different
like,
stages. Yeah.
for us
Yeah.
to give a scoring prediction for tomorrow, it's very hard because both teams have gone through different paths. Their low has been very low compared
Mhm.
to us. Their highs have been higher, you
Mhm.
you could say,
Yeah,
with their
sure.
first 2 games.
Mhm.
Their highs have been higher, but their lows was pretty much like we look like a relegation team, literally against Manchester City,
No, they
which
did.
you didn't get with Madrid. You
No,
at least
no.
got a baseline of good ceiling, good floor, overall good. So
Yeah.
if I had a team to advance, in my opinion, quite comfortably, it's definitely Real Madrid. It's
Yeah.
not even a bias standpoint. Of course, I'm a Madrid fan, of
Right.
course, all of that. But even if you're neutral, just looking at these 2 squads and looking at their games on this Club World Cup, you would have Madrid quite as big favorites, even bookies, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
let's take that as example. They always want to win, right? The house wants to win. Look at the odds that they're giving you for Madrid. They're even lower than for Manchester City,
Yeah.
which goes to show what they're expecting to happen.
Yeah. I think, look, see, Loconte made his predictions. He says Real Madrid will move on. I say so as well. I'm going to go for Real Madrid 2-1 over Juventus. That's just easy, safe, kind of safe score. I think, look, we scored 3 goals the last 2 matches. I think, we might, again, Juventus presents a different type of challenge for us, right? In that this is a traditional European team, a European power, right? So it'll be a little bit different. But yes, I do think Madrid does advance, and then we'll end up playing the winner
I
of
still
Dortmund and Monterrey.
I have them score 3 though. I
Okay, so
still
you
have them
say
score
3.
3.
Do you think
Yeah.
we clean sheet, or does Juventus
That's
get
where
one?
like my worries are because we have seen a few problems, and as we
Hmm.
mentioned, Juventus attack, right? Like
Yeah.
they can hit you from all the spots, and
Mhm.
they also seem to be pretty damn good from set pieces. And the one worry that I have with this team so far, probably my biggest worry, is the amount of corners they're giving away.
Oh my
They're
God, a
giving away
ton.
a bit too many.
Hmm.
So Juventus can nick a goal or even 2
Hmm.
from there, if nothing else, because those dead ball situations are historical problem for us. If we want to be honest,
Hmm.
it's not a new thing. But yeah, I have them to score 3, so it's 3-1 or 3-2 in my eyes. That's
Okay,
how I
very
see it.
good, folks. We'll be back tomorrow after the Juventus Real Madrid match for the post match right here on The Real Deal, a Real Madrid podcast. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. As Loconte mentioned, we are also on Apple and Spotify. So please subscribe to us there. Leave comments. Comment, guys, because we take your comments and we address them. So please
Yeah.
leave comments, ask questions, and we will continue to further out and build this channel out for everybody. We will see you guys tomorrow after Juventus Real Madrid. Hala Madrid. Take care, everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a good time. Bye.